Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Uneven podcast. We love to talk shop, uncover the beauty of failures, and play a few games. Today, we have with us a true multi-talent, Heinrich Rusche. After 6 years at McKinsey, Heinrich went on to a fashion economy and then set up Home Learning, an educational platform to help students with success in their early career. And now his latest stint is in the prop tech space. He's giving true justice to being a consultant. Have we missed anything noteworthy from your journey?
Thank you for the warm introduction, Janvi. It's a pleasure to be here, part of this show. Thanks for inviting me. Very much looking forward to the conversation. I think you did an excellent job summarizing what I did so far, and I trust we might deep dive into some of these aspects in the next 60 minutes anyway.
Yes, sounds good. So let's start with, a quick little game.
Cool. So to start off, we'll play this thing called the Twitter Pit Challenge. So Twitter is known for its 280 character limit on every tweet, which sometimes makes it a little difficult to convey your thoughts. And it takes about 20 seconds to speak 280 characters. So we're going to transfer this challenge to you to explain to us what firm learning is in 20 seconds, but we won't make it so easy. You also need to use one emoji and one hashtag in your tweet. So I'm just gonna put on a timer, and whenever you're ready, I'll start it.
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, go.
Firm Learning is an educational social media platform, emoji thumbs up, to help you succeed in the first years of your career in any ambitious career path, hashtag lifelong learning.
Lovely. That was under 15 seconds. I mean, wow. Very, very well done.
Oh, thank you. Too kind.
Before we get deep into firm learning, I wanted to kick off to learn more about your time at McKinsey, and if you would like to summarize your time there in 3 words, what would it be?
Well, it was insightful, it was intense, and it was great. 3 words. There you have it.
Yeah, no, that would summarize, I guess, most consulting careers. But you said great. So then what made you leave McKinsey and go into the fashion industry?
Yeah. I mean, I said great. Surely not every single day, not every single week was great. Surely there were times where you were just asking yourself, why are you doing this, right? Why are you putting this on yourself? I think that's not uncommon, and I trust most people in this profession feel like this. Then there are the other weeks, the other days where it just feels great. It feels like you can move mountains, right? And it's amazing what you and the team and so on can accomplish. That's part of it. I mean, 6 years, I think, is probably quite a long time in consulting. To be fair, it was interrupted by an MBA I did in the meantime of it, but still longer than most people do. At some point, I did feel like I got lots of the learnings. I kind of feel like I understood what it's like to be a consultant. Surely then, if you progress, continue to progress, new challenges, new learnings come as well. I was a young project lead at the time. The very specific moment that I left was rather impacted by some other reasons. So I had some family ties to this fashion business I later then moved into, and it was a crisis situation at that business, right? So it was a restructuring situation, and that very much impacted the specific moment in time why I left at that point. But probably even without this, probably half a year or a year later, I would have significantly considered such a transition in any case. And the reason being that while of course consulting is interesting and exciting and no project is the same and all these new industries, new functions and so on, at some point it does get a little bit repetitive at least, right? So you have at the beginning the project kickoff, then you talk to your team, to the team kickoff, then every week you have the job fix meetings with your colleagues, with your clients, with the partners coming in, you have the problem solving meetings every 2 weeks. Is this the echo and so on? So while the contents change, the process, not always, but to some extent you could argue, does get repetitive. And at some point I just felt like it would be great to do something new.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think the thing that stood out to me most amongst the 3 words that you mentioned was intense. And that's, I mean, intense in many different ways, right? You've got of course, like intensity in terms of the complexity of the project, and you've got intensity in terms of working hours, the working culture, and everything. So, was there, I mean, at your time there, all these different things that made it so intense? Is that something you thought is a long-term normality with jobs, or is that something you thought of it as, this is my time to be working hard and working crazy hours, and then, at one point I will move away from this?
It was surely the latter, right? I mean, yes, working in these types of firms is very intense. The hours are very long, maybe not as long as, I mean, surely you can also find some other jobs where the hours are even longer, right? But it's not, it shouldn't be a race to the bottom, right? It should be a competition who has the longest hours. So yes, in the end of the day, it was tough. At the time I was in my 20s, so I did an internship at McKinsey when I was 21. I then started at 23. And I mean, at the time I didn't have family, I didn't have many other responsibilities. I also never really got used to working in an environment where you don't have to work these hours, right? So I think that's the truth in any case. As a human, you get used, right, to things very quickly, right? Like after a couple of weeks, this just feels the most normal thing to you, and you don't even understand why other people feel like it's too intense or something like this, right? This may be exaggerating a little bit. But surely after some point, many people then ask themselves, well, maybe you want to have family, you want to have kids. Is it really that great to see only your kids on the weekend? I don't know, right? I mean, some people make the decision that that's okay for them. I don't want to judge that. Everyone needs to decide this for him or herself. Of course, after doing this for years and years, you have little sleep, right? Often the stress levels are quite high. Surely it's not the most healthy career if you really consider doing this for decades. Or to put it differently, at least you need to have very good, let's say, like coping mechanisms, coping strategies to adjust to that. And surely there are also people who can do all this with a very healthy lifestyle. But I mean, I'd say the lifestyle was not at that specific point in time, not my number one reason to leave. But for me, it was also clear that latest when I wanted to have family, that probably I needed to do a move.
Interesting, yeah. And then when you moved to SOAR, was it something that, I mean, was it a big change, right? Like, was it that your hours were a lot more intense and, you had this extra time outside of work suddenly? Was there that kind of transition?
Of course. I mean, sure, it was still an intense role, also in a very special situation, as I tried to say earlier. And that was intense in many ways as well. But the truth was that I had much more time available for myself, also in the evenings. And that potentially also led to me starting the YouTube channel, of course, right? So I left consulting end of 2019. And I catched myself watching lots of Netflix in the evening, movies, just scrolling my TikTok feed. And at some point I asked myself, okay, is there maybe something else I can do with all this new gained free time? And then, I mean, it wasn't a big master plan, but this thought at some point just came to my mind that starting a channel might be a great idea to just pass on some of the learnings, some of the things I did in the past. And then this was also matched with COVID starting in 2020, where then also people were spending more time at home, more time in the home office. And all of this together then indeed was, just a good opportunity at that point in time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I think we also found you around that time when it was, it was during COVID, right? So when we started Reshape. And I would agree that when you find like a little, COVID especially makes it easier, not easier, but like gave a lot of people a lot more time as well. And like everyone sparked like different interests and tried to like gain into, like go deep into like their hobbies and things like that. So it was nice to see how so many different people started different things. But like for form learning especially, it was really helpful, I would say, given that like I know a lot of people around me that are consultants as well, and me being included. It helps. It also helps to know that there are other people in similar situations, but also like what is the next step. And I think it can like give light into like whether that's something for you or not, and like to show it explicitly as to what like your career might look like. It's good to know as someone starting out at that point in time. But how did you like manage both like running a channel and having a full-time job? Because you did say you had extra time, but like YouTube and like filming is a lot of work and takes a lot of time with like thinking of ideas, editing it, growing the channel. So how did that work?
Yes, absolutely. It was, I think, to some extent, always kind of what I did right from university. Not sure if this was a conscious decision, but I just ended up being there. That somehow I just always ended up with needing to work on more things than like actually it would be reasonable for me to do. Maybe I'm just very bad at saying no, or I'm just too passionate about a new idea I want to try and so on. But for me, this always worked quite well in many ways, right? And I mean, this I think is also why, for instance, if you work in consulting or so, you're often quite productive in the sense that you often have a quite big output, right? Not because you are the master of time management and you apply the Pomodoro technique and use like time boxing in your calendar and look like at any of these other like productivity techniques that you can read from the gurus in the books or in some other YouTube videos. But in the end of the day, I think the main driver is that just you have lots of stuff to do, okay? And if you have lots of stuff to do, then you need to get things done, yeah? And this was always something that I try to use for myself. I'm, at the other hand side, actually also a big procrastinator, right? So sometimes it's very difficult for me to motivate myself to just sit at the desk to do the things. But then when I have the deadline and when it needs to get done, I then usually do find a way to get it done, even if this means then working really late in the evening or whatever. And then for me, this was always a good way to then also do some great stuff by then just saying yes to stuff and then, yeah, I do this, I do this, I do this. And then in the end, it always somehow works out, right? Maybe not always in the best way. Maybe then it's like an 80% correct thing and not the 100% correct thing. But for me, this was always a way that worked quite good for me.
And like film learning has always been something you did on the side. Like you've always had a job besides that, but like it has been really successful over the last couple of years. So have you ever considered doing it full time? Or is it always going to be something you do on the side?
Yeah, I mean, I have considered it also. After consulting, I was part of this fashion company. Then after 2 years in this restructuring situation, we sold the company to an investor, right? So then in early 2021, I was out of the company. The whole headquarter moved to like another location and so on after the transaction. And I saw myself first maybe doing some weeks of a yoga retreat. I don't know, just pondering what I want to do now with my life, right? What is the next move? And then, of course, I considered also then going all in on the YouTube channel. I mean, obviously, I'm feeling super thankful and blessed that now I'm even in a position to consider this, right? That maybe it's even possible for me to do this. Though then I talked to some good friends of mine who I already also know for many years, who already several years ago founded this startup, which is now a rather mature startup, as they like to say right here in Munich in the prop tech sector. And it just felt very enticing to me to really move also in this completely new position, learn more about the startup world, learn what fundraising is all about, learn what it really means to be in a leadership position of such a company. And it was just too good of an opportunity to then just go to some yoga retreats instead. So then I decided that more or less without a break, I then directly again transitioned into this role, which was definitely the right decision for me. And the good thing is that this is surely not a normal job for me, right? So I know many people very well personally, which also gives me a bit of more freedom that maybe I can pursue some side projects like the channel and like recording this podcast here in the moment, for instance. But still, it's for me a great mix, though it might definitely be the case that in a couple of years I reevaluate it and then come to the conclusion that going all in on the platform might be a great next step then.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I think what stands out to me from what you just said is, firm learning itself is also built up entirely on your like personal experience. Like it's, I mean, a lot of the content you put out there is about what you went through and learnings from that. So I think it's kind of useful to continue to have new experiences so you've got more stuff to share.
Definitely.
And, considering that, do you think like, because generally, I mean, firm learning, originally is about that McKinsey, Bain, BCG world of consulting and everything. Do you think that over the next 2 years, it's going to kind of pivot a lot more towards startups and fundraising and VCs and everything, because that's the kind of experience you're getting now?
So for sure, already trying and always try to also do a little bit of different content, not only talking about consulting. For me, the core of the channel always was educational content, as in transferable skills, kind of what you would learn in a consulting firm that then you can hopefully apply in other roles, in other positions as well. Communication topics, slide writing topics, and so on. And this, I think, will continue to be the focus of it, and surely now also the new role enables me maybe to talk about some additional skills, some additional capabilities that now I'm picking up over time, which might be helpful independent of your background. I will definitely continue to experiment with some new topics as well. Last year I also did my first business angel investments in the startup world. Actually this weekend I released a new video about that, what that was like, some learnings, some tips and pointers, that might be helpful to you if you're considering a similar thing. So I'm surely thinking about how to expand the content a bit in these areas. At the same time, if you're a creator on these social media platforms, you're always also a slave to the algorithms. So it's always important to then just see and observe and watch out what actually gets traction and what does it mean if something gets traction? Well, it means whether people are interested in it or not, right? And you can create the best videos, but then if no one watches them, then it's also kind of a waste of time and energy and to some extent also money. So of course I'm mindful of that as well, but definitely looking to expand the content too, yeah.
And then, so in fact, that's very interesting what you said about traction, because, let's say, for example, a very simple topic of creating a presentation, right? Like there are things that have been, because I've worked at a consultancy, I know there's certain guidelines to follow. But, let's say every 5 to 7 years, the software might change or the guidelines might change. So how do you make sure that the content continues to remain relevant? Is there are you getting new insights and learnings from somewhere to be able to do it? Or, how do you make it timeless?
So specifically on the slide writing topic, I agree that the look and feel of these documents evolves over time. Also, if you're part of these consulting firms and then look back at the knowledge repositories and so on and look at how the documents looked like 20 years ago, they're surely different now. So there's some evolution in the design. Though I'd say that there are some, let's say, underlying principles, right, that actually are not changing that much. And I do try to focus on these types of, let's say, core values, which then hopefully you will be able to leverage in the future as well. But of course, right, I stay vigilant, I stay observant. I'm obviously in regular contact with many people working in some consulting firms. Of course, also in my current position, we create lots of documents, lots of slides, and surely you should never stop learning, right? And I hope that I do that, but if you always have a new tip or see something new evolving in your roles, feel free to hit me up as well. I would always be interested to hear what you guys are finding out.
Yeah, definitely. And when you say learnings and career related things is what you like talking about, or educate people and skills based on that. Primarily, I think you're focusing either in consulting or more finance related or business related situations, but your job has been in different industries. So is there anything where you go maybe deep dives on industry specific things, or do you think it's better to keep it more generalized so that it caters to a wider group of people?
Yeah. I would not even consider myself now a deep expert on any specific industry. Of course, now I worked a couple of years in retail. Now I'm working since 2 years now in the construction industry in the firm at McKinsey. Of course, I also worked in several industries, but it's not that I have decades of experience in a specific industry where I now would want to go super deep. So for me, this idea of talking about capabilities, transferable skills, this, I think, is what I want to continue do, and I will surely also expand my content on that. And this is actually also I'm doing corporate trainings for. So this is something also started 2 years ago, where people approached me also mainly based on the videos that maybe someone saw a video about creating slides, right? And then the person said, oh shoot, I have this team here, right? And I would love them to do better slides. And then I'm working now with several companies to upskill their teams as well. So stuff like this is what I really enjoy, what I love to do. Probably there are more people, other people more qualified than me, not to talk about the ins and outs of the retail industry, right?
Fair enough. Okay, so we will now move on to the next segment called the red flags. We're going to give you three situations composed of two things that are going great and then one that's not so great, so the red flag. We've adapted these like situations to you, and then you have to pick which situation you would rather be in and like tell us why.
Okay.
So situation one, you've got great projects at Building Radar. You're up for a big promotion soon, but foam learning has been losing its audience slowly. Situation two, your colleagues at Building Radar are absolutely lovely. 2 out of Foam Learning's last 5 videos have gone viral. Your company says you can't continue doing Foam Learning while working with them anymore. Situation 3, Foam Learning's got an immense international audience. You've been able to set up a masterclass platform for Foam Learning. But your latest review at Building Radar was well below average. So these are like the three situations, and which one would you rather be in?
Which one I would rather be in?
Yeah.
Okay, now I see even a slide. So all of these situations are somewhat trying to push me to choose between Building Radar and From Learning, right? That's interesting. I mean, we can talk about any of them. I think indeed they're more or less similar, right? So there's this trade-off between something at Building Radar that needs to get fixed, or where I need to maybe invest more time and energy, and then at the same time an opportunity or something I want to do at Firm Learning. So I mean, here my overall answer to these would be, again, when I started at Building Radar, it was very clear what I was doing on the side at Firm Learning. So this trade-off for me doesn't really exist in this way. What's also clear is that Building Radar, of course, is my full-time job. So if there's any, let's say, a conflict of interest, anything I need to get done for Building Radar in doubt, I will always prioritize that. I mean, it's also my legal responsibility as a full-time employee of the company to do that and to put the interest of the company first. So for that, there's no question. Regarding promotions, now, I think, unfortunately, I'm already kind of at the highest level working at Building Radar, so that's not really a topic for me. But that's also not my incentive, right? So I'm also incentivized on the overall success of the company. So I think the interests of me and the two founders are very aligned here. Not sure, is this answering the question? But feel free to ask if there's anything else specifically that you would like to know.
Yeah, I think so. Overall, I mean, based on what you've said, I think like situation one kind of best describes it, that like you would prioritize Building Radar given, that you've got the legal obligation and everything.
To some extent I did. I mean, if you just also follow my YouTube channel since Q3, Q4 last year, I really lost a bit on consistency. So before that, like every week I was releasing a video. Now I'm trying to keep up, but not that much anymore. Maybe this is also something to do with in October us receiving our second child. So my wife gave birth, so the second child, which also didn't improve my lifestyle, to say the least. But yeah, so I mean, in this sense, of course, I mean, Building Radar again is my full-time job, so of course I'm prioritizing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, first off, congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But yeah, fair enough. I think I get what you mean. And yeah, we did cater the situations to be kind of a trade-off. So like one is where Building Radar is going great. One is where Firm Learning is going great. And then one is where both are going great, but you have to finally choose. And I think, yeah, you pretty much did answer that question, that if it had to come to it, you would prioritize Building Radar. And that makes a lot of sense.
And yeah, luckily, I don't think you need to make that choice. It's just interesting to see and put people into like those positions to see like where they would lean towards. Think it like we get to learn a lot about people's like mindsets. But yeah.
No, of course. I mean, for me, this doesn't mean that what I do at Firm Learning is not important to me, or that I would just easily stop doing that. So that for me is surely not an option at this point. It's just that, of course, sometimes you cannot invest all the time that you want to invest in every single thing you do all the time. And of course, trade-offs like these are absolutely needed, absolutely.
And I think this goes back to what you said about the 80%, right? Like there might be times where firm learning, you can only give it your 80% and not your 100%.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might be with building radar as well. And that's got nothing to do with firm learning. That, as you said, you've got another child and everything as well. So there are many things that come into play. But yeah, I mean, there are also times at your job where you're giving it 150%, not 100%. So
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, usually on the weekends, we don't work that much for building radar. That's surely the case. I mean, sometimes, of course, if there's an important business need, but this is then at least always some time that I have available to work on new videos and create some good content.
Alrighty, so Heinrich, this is rapid fire, pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, short 1 to 2 word answers, and let's say under 5 seconds for each. So whenever ready, should I start?
Let's go.
Cool. Did you ever question whether firm learning was worth it?
No.
What was your biggest sacrifice to make firm learning possible?
Surely the time invested, right? So maybe having less time available for other things I'd love to spend time on.
Cool. Do you miss McKinsey?
Sometimes, yes. So it's not really an option for me not to go back at this point, but definitely working with these smart people, these war stories that are created late at night in the team rooms. Some great memories for sure.
Cool. What is the weirdest place from where you have worked?
I have worked in quite a few weird places. So places in far ends of Europe, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, in some rather exotic countries I've been at. But I mean, it was always a civilized environment. So I mean, there are people that far crazier stuff than me. But yeah, I mean, definitely some good memories as well.
Cool. What's the best business idea that you will never use?
Nothing that really comes to mind, to be honest. So I was always educated in the way that ideas are worthless, right? So I don't get hung up on ideas. It's all about the execution.
Wow. Would you ever retire?
I mean, sure, for sure when I'm old, right? So the question is if I'm young, whether I would retire. I don't think I will ever be in a position where my number one preference would be just to sit at home and watch Netflix the whole day, right? So surely there will always be something that I want to do, but maybe what that is might change over time depending on my financial situation, definitely.
And okay, so would you choose books or podcasts?
I'd love to read more books. At the moment, I rather listen to podcasts. Let's put it this way.
Do you prefer an iPad or a notebook?
I love this feeling of really working on a proper PC, a notebook, or a desktop PC. So I'm not really this mobile first guy yet. So the latter.
Cool. And then, are you a morning person or a night person?
A night person, though I'm learning to wake up early as well with 2 little kids.
And what's your favorite social media platform?
That's hard, but pros and cons for all of them. But I think I have to say YouTube.
Fair enough. And yeah, so that concludes the rapid fire segment, bringing us almost to the end of our conversation.
Okay.
But before we head off, what we do is we ask every guest to ask a question for our next guest. So we're going to ask you first the question that our previous guest gave us, and then we're going to ask you to give a question to our next guest. So your question is,
what's your worst nightmare in terms of what could happen on a daily basis? What's the one thing that you avoid in your brain that makes you lose sleep, that makes you feel like, man, if this happens, everything is screwed and everything is terrible and the world's going to end?
Many things come to mind, but probably here as well as a now new family father, thinking that anything could happen to your family, I think that would definitely be a nightmare.
Fair enough.
But yeah, thank you so much, Heinrich. It was amazing speaking with you, and overall, like your content and like the way you put things out has been amazing. And I think it's easy to see how genuine you are about like educating people around you, and how it generally people don't necessarily always want to share all like tips and things that they have learned throughout their career. So it's really good that you are doing that. And I think a lot of people are benefiting from it. So like, please continue to do that as well. And thank you for joining us. It's been great having you.
No, thanks, Janvi. Super happy to hear the content is helpful, of course. Appreciate you guys interviewing me again. Thanks for spending the time with me. And I do hope maybe that there are some interesting points that some of you also in the audience were able to take away.